We also have the alveolar meatus upper in the maxilla, and we have another meatus in the mandibular body. We have the zygomatic arch, which is formed between the process of the zygomatic bone and connects to the process of the temporal bone. The ethmoid and the vomer together form the perpendicular and lateral walls of the bony nasal septum. Then the inferior nasal concha, deep to the maxilla, are for creating turbulence, cooling, and dehumidifying the air before the air enters the lungs. Then we move on to the mandibular, and the mandible is made up of a body, the mandible ramus, and also the mandible angle. In addition, we have the coronoid process, just under the zygomatic, and the mandibular notch, right here, and mandibular condyle, and this forms the TMJ joint, also known as the temporomandibular joint. Now we're going to move on to the vertebral column, and we will use our little man. Just move him closer. Now you can see his spine, and we have two primary vertebrae sections, being the thoracic and the sacral area. The two secondary sections of the vertebra would be the cervical and the lumbar. Then moving on, we have the cervical vertebrae have 7 bodies, and the atlas, which would be the C1, articulates inferiorly with the occipital condyles, and this enables the yes, or the nodding motion that we can do with our skulls. Then we have the cervical vertebrae are unique to the rest of the vertebra in that each transverse process contains a foramen, and the foramen is for the spinal column, for the spinal cord. Then we have the 12 thoracic bones, and they are characterized by having spinous processes on them. They have a transverse process. They contain a body and a centrum. And then there is the intravertebral foramen, again in the vertebrae. Then we have the intervertebral discs, and the intervertebral discs run between the two bodies of each vertebra. Moving on, we have the lumbar. The lumbar contains 5 vertebrae, and then we have the sacrum and the coccyx. The sacrum was formerly 5 bones joined together, and the coccyx is 3 to 5 bones. Now we're going to move on to the sternum. And the sternum contains the jugular notch and the manubrium, the body, and the xiphoid process. Then we have the ribs. So we have the true ribs, which are also known as the vertebrosternal ribs, and they are ribs 1 through 7. And we have the vertebrochondral ribs, which are also known as the false ribs, 8 through 10. And then we have the floating ribs, which are not attached. And then we have the head and the neck tubercle of the ribs. So the neck of the ribs would be in here. And then we have the tubercles. And the head of the rib articulates with the facet on the vertebral body. So the head will connect back here on the facet of the vertebral body, and the neck is a constricted area but articulates with the facet of the transverse process of the spine. Okay, and that ends our portion for today.